Most of us celebrate holiday traditions to connect with the past, but also to reflect on the present. That certainly applies to the annual performances of the gospel-style musical Black Nativity, produced locally by the National Center of Afro-American Artists. To tell us about this year's production are the director and curator of the center's museum, Barry Gaither, and one of the cast members, Milton Wright. Thank you both for being with us. I want to start with Barry Gaither. This is the classic, with the words written by Langston Hughes. But what about reflecting on the present? What do you see in this year's production?
I see this year's production as an opportunity for us to remind ourselves and those who come and experience the production that we're called upon to be welcoming people, that the story of the Nativity, from the episode at the end to the flight into Egypt, is a story that parallels the kind of refugee issues that are so present in this very moment. Without addressing issues of policy as a matter of morality and ethics, we are called upon to be compassionate to the stranger, to welcome those in need. And we would like to think that Black Nativity helps foster that spirit. So each year when we mount the production, we mount it saying, this is a gift from the Black community of Boston to men and women of goodwill. And we can add to that, it's an opportunity to model the kind of joy, caring, and community that we want to be part of and that we invite you to join and become part of.
Milton Wright, you're a judge, you're a singer, and you've been involved with this production for 32 years. Why so much loyalty to this?
Well, it begins with the work itself, which I think is a unique work and a masterful work. Langston Hughes did a masterful job of telling this story. The music is just profound. It's I think one of the things that's compelling to me is the children. I come back every year because to me it's important to be there for the children. I've been in it long enough to see children come in as the baby Jesus and grow up to have families, to go through college, to get married. And it has a profound impact on children. I remember one year there was a young man who was about 9 years old, and he was being interviewed, for some, I think it was a TV show, and they asked him, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he was a cast member of Black Nativity, of course. He said, well, I always wanted to be a singer, but now I know Judge Wright, and I want to be a singer and a lawyer. And to me, that was the greatest compliment. But wait a minute, the story doesn't end there. I'm in my lobby several years later, and the receptionist calls me to the front. Says, there's a young man here, says he knows you from Black Nativity. I came out to the front, and there's this young man, and it's the 9-year-old now in college at Duke University Law School. He says, I'm following through, Judge. He says, I'm going to be a lawyer, and one day I'm going to be a judge, and I'm still singing.
Barry, what about that chemistry? In a way, it does sort of narrow the distance between theater and church, because the church is where you know people, and they're singing, and they're your neighbors. I mean, isn't that what you?
I like to think that Black Nativity is not a show that you come to be an audience. It's a show that you come to be one with the show. It's about energy and joy and vitality. And if you lend yourself to the rhythms. You become part of it. And the distinction that is traditional between audience and performance is significantly foreclosed, because you can, with yourself and your own participation, become an extension of what's happening on the stage. So I think we like to think of it as highly participatory. Now, it's important to say that over the nearly 5 decades that this show has been produced, the architecture of the show has remained constant. But each year, who fills those spaces changes. We have approximately a third of a change in the cast from year to year, and our whole cast is about 75. So the sound of the show is different. The lead singers change, the choral detailing alters, so you won't come any 2 seasons and see the same show, but you will come every season and see the living tradition of the show, because a tradition can only live when it also builds into it room for improvisation and innovation. And we've been able to keep that very much a feature of this show.
Milton, a lot of us hear holiday music on the radio and we get tired of it. You're in a live performance, you're singing this gospel music, you do it year after year. Do you ever get tired of it?
I never get tired of it. And again, it's what Barry says, it changes every year. I think even in my role, I think every year I try to bring something different to it. I think everyone does. And when we see different people come in, and we always get new people who are profoundly talented and bring a whole new kind of feel to the production. And so it's always new. We say, see Black Nativity again for the first time, because it's always new.
There was, I was preparing for another thing and I got a list of questions. And one of the questions was, what did blackness as a kind of mega concept have to do with Black Nativity? And I thought about it, and I thought about Langston's writing and how he writes in the voice of the ordinary worker, of the everyday man. And I said, this could be expressed if you said, taking the experience of the people who were at the inn in Jerusalem the 2,000 years ago, convert that to the people at the Marriott or any other hotel in Boston now. And Langston has collapsed that distance by making the voice of the worker, because the voice of the worker remains the same. The worker is observing the people on top who are calling the shots and commenting on it. He's framing it in a way that his friends and associates can be entertained by the story, but also can understand the poignancy of it. So his writing captures that in the vernacular speech. And it really is a kind of fun way of thinking about how, over time, the universal human experiences that are at the base of human exchange can be voiced and can become accessible, because making them accessible in your own time is always, to a certain degree, translating them into the language of now.
This is BNN News, and we're talking about Black Nativity with Barry Gaither and Milton Wright. Barry, you talked about rhythm earlier. There's one sort of rhythm that people might be surprised about if they have not seen this before, the way Black Nativity conveys the miracle of childbirth in a very visceral way. Give a little foretaste.
This is extraordinary if you have not seen our production, because you won't go to very many productions about the Nativity where the labor is choreographed and the miracle of the birth is acted out. George Howard, who was a choreographer in the Catherine Dunham tradition and who worked for us for many years, and Michael Babatunde Olatunji, the Nigerian percussionist who established African music and American music context. They both came together at the beginning of Black Nativity and created this pas de deux, a dance for two, the dance of Mary and Joseph, as a very dramatic sequence where Mary dances the labor and in a twirl finally delivers the Christ child to the surprise of Joseph and the audience. And then at this after the thunderous drums of the African music, that's the rhythm of the passage, you finally have this moment of quiet just before the house goes black, and you see these little arms of the new baby Jesus just reaching out of the manger and sort of animating in the air. And the audience always loves that, because it's impossible not to like the newborn, because the newborn represent for us in an archetypical way rebirth and new possibility. They are the translation of hope. When you see children, you can't know the future. You can't know which one may deliver the cure to cancer or some other changing thing for the whole world. So every youngster comes with those possibilities, and this story of a particular youngster and a particular religious frame is an archetypical statement of hope, of belief in tomorrow, of possibility.
And Milton, what's that reaction from people when they see this? You've seen this every year.
Yes.
What goes on?
Well, I think it's, well, people are immediately surprised that this, you know, when they see this life, even if they know that there's supposed to be a baby there.
Yeah, they know the story.
They're always surprised. So there's a gasp, there's a to it. It's one of those awe-inspiring moments, you know.
And the babies have personalities.
Yes.
Some babies are very active and they sort of steal the show. Some babies move enough for you to know that it's a live baby, but they don't. Some babies cry. So you have even again a statement of the complexity that is the human family.
Right.
Finally, Barry, we should make sure our viewers know when this begins and where they can get information about tickets.
We have 12 shows beginning December 7th. So our shows are the 2 weekends that follow the 7th and the weekend of the 7th. On Fridays and Saturdays at 8, we have an evening show, and on Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon at 3:30, we have a matinee. All of the shows are at the Paramount in the theater district, and you can purchase tickets through, of course, the box office of the Paramount or online through blacknativity.org. Now, be sure you get blacknativity.org, because there are resellers out there with tickets that are significantly beyond the price of our tickets. So don't get taken. Make sure you're either buying through our box office at the Paramount or through the real site for Black Nativity and not a reseller. The resellers always have somewhere up at the edge in very small print that they're resellers. But you have to look for it.
Thanks for the warning. Barry Gaither and Milton Wright for Black Nativity.